VMBR0 and then VMBR1. I labeled it arrow. So that's going to be my mesh node. And these are what are called Linux bridges. Okay. These are the virtual switches. Proxmox calls them virtual Linux bridges. And so what we're doing at this portion of the setup is we're saying that any VM that we create, and when we attach a virtual network card to that VM, we're going to say, hey, that VM is plugged into VMBR0. So if a VM's NIC is connected to VMBR0, you can see here that this virtual switch sends its traffic to NIC 0. So that means any VM tied to this virtual switch, when that traffic leaves Proxmox, it's going to go out of the motherboard NIC and into my router. So if it ever needed to do that, it could leave the network. The router is then taking that traffic. With this going to NIC 0 and NIC 0 being our router, right now the router is the DHCP server for the network. And you can tell because as soon as VMBR0 was routed to NIC 0, VMBR0 picked up an IP, the CIDR notated subnet, a /24, and then it has the gateway. Okay, the 192.168.1.1 is our router's IP. That is the gateway. That's how we know that the DHCP server is hooked into NIC 0 and VMBR0 is hooked into NIC 0. So that's how the routing works. It's a little tricky at first, but once you actually start messing with this, you'll get the hang of it. And guys, because we have two network devices plugged into Proxmox, I created a second virtual switch, VMBR1, and that is routing. You can see here, this is the name of this USB to Ethernet network device. So then if we create any VM and on that VM's NIC, we connect it to VMBR1, then that VM is going to be communicating to this USB to Ethernet NIC, that physical device on the hardware. Imagine you have a physical switch, right? And you have multiple devices plugged into a switch. Those devices that are plugged into that switch can communicate with each other, right? Assuming there's no VLANs. Those devices on the same physical switch can communicate with each other. That's what's happening here. If we wanted to create, for example, 10 VMs, we could set the NICs on all 10 VMs to point to VMBR